came to visit us because they were going to talk stories. They were going to talk about the old things. And sometimes they're going to talk about the strange and unbelievable things. And they're going to make you scared. You're going to be horrified listening to some of the stories. But that's how the Hawaiians pass on from generation to generation. So tonight I'm taking the opportunity to pass on what I know about Ingrid that you may have not known and may never hear it again. A lot of people ask me, Joe, how did you meet Ingrid? Where did you meet Ingrid? How did this thing come about? Well, for those of you who don't know, I was in Germany as a young lieutenant. I was flying my helicopter, checking the maintenance so that it wouldn't fail on me. And I looked down on this field. There were two young girls on bicycles. One was a blonde and one was brunette. And I had my crew chief, a sergeant who's my aircraft mechanic, in the helicopter with me. And in those days, we have to check to see if that helicopter will auto-rotate and we can land on a small patch, right in the backyard if I have to, from 100 to 1,000 feet. So I said to my crew chief, watch this. I cut the engine and we swooped down and landed in this field next to these two young ladies. They came up, riding up to the helicopter, excited to see a helicopter land next to them. I saw Ingrid, I looked out there, Ingrid sent the blonde to come to talk with me. I had just arrived in Germany, no German, okay? And this blonde came to me, tried to talk to me, and I had my helmet on, the engine is going, I cannot understand. I couldn't understand the language. So the blonde goes back, and then Ingrid comes. And I looked over at my crew chief and said, wow, she's beautiful. I wonder what language is she going to speak?
Angelic.
Angelic, right. So she came up and she made hand motion telling me she wanted to go into the helicopter to go fly. It's pretty easy to understand that. That's pretty good language, right? And I looked over at my crew chief. He looked at me. Don't you do that, because I can get in trouble.
That's right.
Okay?
A whole lot of trouble.
So I said, okay, if I was alone, I'd get in trouble. But I'm not alone. I can't get in trouble. So I took out a pen and my little notebook. I handed it to her. She wrote down her telephone number. She wrote down her address. And she left. Guess what? As soon as I landed my helicopter, I jumped in my old beat-up Mercedes and I drove to that address. And there she was, standing by the gate, waiting for me. What a way to meet. So I stopped. I can't communicate with her. She cannot communicate with me. Now, love is a universal language, right? It can happen to everybody no matter what the language is. But I felt at that time, this was a beautiful young lady but I did not know how to communicate. I made up my mind I better go take German language lesson. So I went back and I went to University of Maryland night school and I studied hard. I went into my barracks room, I turned on a TV, and instead of watching American AFN, Armed Forces Network, I watched German programs. I didn't know what I was looking at, listening to, but I forced myself to learn the language. When I was in a car, when I turned the radio on, German. German music, German news, that's all right. I think I know what you're talking about. But that's how I started so that I could go back to this little village and someday maybe face this big German man and say, I would like to marry your daughter in their language. I wasn't going to go up like a Hawaiian trying to say, hey, bro. No, it's going to be their language. That's how we met. But her mother cooked the best pastries on a wooden stove that had these rings in there, and she adjusted the temperature by changing the rings on the stove. And everything was delicious, homemade, and I said, wow, this is the farmer's daughter that I was looking for. The father had a pig in the back inside the house, and one room downstairs was a pig in there. Smelled like hell. But one day I come home, walk in the house, and sausages were all over the house, and it smelled fresh sausage. They butchered their own. They made their sausage. They made their own butter. They made their own bread. They had their own garden, all green. Everything that they cooked was right from the yard. They had chicken. They had ducks. They had rabbits. That started me to understand that I grew up in a similar situation in Hawaii. My grandmother, my mother, we had our own little McDonald farm, okay? And we had access to the ocean and all the sea food that we could have. So it was here a difference from the ocean into the mountains. So that's how I met Ingrid. Got married in Germany. Had Mike, the first child, in Germany. And then I had to come back to the States, to Fort Benning, Georgia, to go to school there. That's where I had son Joe at Fort Benning. And at his baptism, when he was born, we had a Hawaiian Filipino luau in Fort Benning. We roasted the pig, lechon, Filipino style, for his baptism in Fort Benning. From Fort Benning, I went to Hawaii, and guess who showed up? Kimo showed up. Kimo was born in Tripler Hospital. When he was born, I was out in the field on exercise, and I got the word. I flew my helicopter to Tripler, jumped out of it, went up to see Kimo with Ingrid. So I've been privileged. I started as enlisted, but I went into the officer rank, and I went up as far as I could. Ingrid was the one that drove me to become what I am today. She insisted that I dress properly, I speak properly, I associate with proper people, and I even drink properly. Because she and I love to drink German beer, German wine, German champagne, German white lightning. Okay? Ingrid was not only the best wife to any man, she was a military spouse. I have to tell you this because when I had to leave the military, and one of the pictures you will see up here, one of the pictures you will see is my retirement when we had a parade for me at Hawaii when I retired. One of the pictures is here. Ingrid loved the military. She became an officer's wife, and she led all of the young officers' wives in many, many activities. She loved it. She loved it so much that when I had to leave the military, she cried. She didn't want to leave. But we went on with our life. After retired, now with 3 sons, we moved to Washington, D.C. I worked for drug enforcement for 5 years in Washington, D.C. That's where the 3 sons grew up and went to Magruder High School. Okay? So that's when we bought our homes in Maryland. We were fortunate, we bought the home in Pupukea. While we were there with Timo being a little boy, we were able to bring Ingrid's mother to Hawaii for the first time ever, and she spent 6 months with us. And Ingrid, by herself, cleaned up 1 acre of California grass, weeds, and everything, and planted beautiful flowers, trees, and fruits, and bananas, and papayas. And then I had to leave them. I had to go to Vietnam. So we arranged so that Ingrid could go back to her family in Germany while I was at the war zone in Vietnam. I was more comfortable with that than she staying in Hawaii. Okay. We came back and went to Savannah, Georgia. And that's when I was able to go into college from there to University of Nebraska. Okay. And then I took a job in Hawaii. We went back to Hawaii. And then, because of Ingrid's father passing away, she wanted to go home to be with her mother. So we went to Germany. I spent 15 years in Germany with the Corps of Engineers, working there, and we were close to home. And that's the home that Ingrid inherited from her mother when her mother passed away. It was going to be our retirement home for the summer months. When it gets too hot, we were going to Germany where it's nice and cool. When it gets too cold in Germany, we're going to come to Hawaii and spend our retirement years there. So that was our general plan. Why Las Vegas? Is because Ingrid loved it here. She was introduced to Las Vegas in this house when Auntie Lynn used to live here. And from that time on, she loved it here. We bought this house from Auntie Lynn before she passed away. And then the neighborhood turned into an ugly place, and Ingrid didn't want to stay here. So we looked for a place, and we found Aliante. but we never moved there before she passed. So all of the planning we did, all of the preparation, all these years that Ingrid and I spent together trying to keep our family as a family unit in a place where we could gather here or eventually in Aliante, and yet still go to Hawaii when we want to, still go to Germany when we want to. All of that is now being changed. So Ingrid was not only the best wife and the best military spouse, she was an outstanding mother to my son. She is the most gracious grandmother to our grandchildren. And most important for me, if she didn't push me, I would have gotten out of the military after 10 years. I was up to here. I wasn't going to take any more. 10 years I wanted to get out of the military. But she made me stay in until I retired. She made me become what I am today. She made me go to night school just to get my master's degree. So, as the evening goes on, if you have any questions, I have shared with you some things about Ingrid that perhaps lifts her up to the pedestal of where she belongs and where she is now. She deserves the best. Unfortunately, she was taken before that could happen. I thank the good Lord in His good wisdom and His benevolent ways felt it was better for Ingrid to be with our Mike and her mother and father at this time. And I am not one to question that. It is His desire. And after all the months of suffering with her, I am happy that she left us in the way she did, peacefully and well taken care of by myself, Joe, Kimo, and the other members of the family, especially Rosie and my sister. Without them, it would have been impossible for me to stand here to do this for you tonight. Another thing that, although disappointing, but it happened to us, is that we were hoping that we would have the urn and her ashes here tonight. But unfortunately, due to the way the state and the county, the laws and everything, we won't be able to get the ashes till a later time. But we were not going to let that upset our schedule. Kimo must leave tonight or early tomorrow. Joe will be leaving day after tomorrow. I will stay in the area because I'm going to start treatment on my own self that I had been neglecting, and I need treatment. I know I do. So I'll be here because the VA has graciously taken care of me and have given me 2 appointments already just by me showing up. So I'm very blessed that the VA here is going to continue the evaluation of my wartime ailments that I never believed I had. And it happened to be effects of Agent Orange and what they call PTSD. So I'm going to have to stay here, take care of it, and I will leave from here to go back to Germany to close out the sale of that house and the bank account and all of the things, close out everything in Germany, and send Ingrid's Mercedes that she wanted to be here with her. I will send it here. I think in the absence of the German lady, it's appropriate for us to just conclude this as a formal setting. If you want to stick around and ask questions, we have some food there for all of us to share and spend time together in this wonderful evening and share this moment. I'll close with this. Over the 55 years that I was actively working, 20 as a military guy, and then 35 as a Defense Department employee. 55 years that I worked in my 80 years. That's a long time. And I am tired. I am exhausted. But in spite of all that, I did the best I could to make Ingrid have what she wanted. When I first arrived in Germany in September last year to see her in the hospital, she begged me to give her a gun. She was so sick and miserable and did not want to go on. She wanted to shoot herself. That's how bad she was, state of physical and mental state she was in. I managed to talk her out of that, to bring her back to being having a better appreciation of living. But over the weeks that I spent with her, she went back into those negatives, and I had to drag her back out. It was not only trying to take care of her physical problems, but she was mentally exhausted with everything. And I found out through the family members in Germany that Ingrid went into a downward spiral when we lost Mike. And she never got over the grieving of Mike's loss. Okay? And that was a little while ago. And all this time she'd been grieving. And then this happened to her. She begged me the second week I was there, please don't let me die in Germany. Although she wanted to die, she did not want to die in Germany. She begged me. And I did everything I could. And I succeeded to have her medically evacuated by the Army military back to Walter Reed in D.C. And she was so happy about leaving Germany that she was getting closer to us, to this family, to what she wanted. She wanted to be with all of you, not in Germany alone, or even with me. Joe personally took the time. Andrea took the time in Walter Reed to care for Ingrid. I owe them so much for that. And then Joe put his mom on the airplane, and he brought her here. So I'm surrounded by caring, loving family. All of you. Everybody cares so much for Ingrid. And I appreciate that because it was a hard time for her. But I think we made it as comfortable as we could when we put her into hospice, and she was taken care of very well. And she went peacefully, and I'm sure she was ready to go. She was ready to go. I kept telling her in Germany and in the airplane and in Walter Reed, it's not your time. It's not yet your time. All of us will have to face that. We don't know when the time is. I don't know when my time is. But you can bet your life I'm preparing for that, so that my family, all of you, are going to be as prepared as I am for when I have to go. I had thought that I was going to go first before Ingrid, and I had set up everything so she was going to be able to take care of herself when I go. And what happened? I got to redo my planning. Now it's for me. And I will do my planning with my family. All of you will participate in that planning. Okay? I conclude. Thank you. I thank the Lord for this opportunity to speak with you and to share some of the Hawaiian part of me, doing what I am responsible for, passing on what I know about Ingrid, and hopefully you know a little more tonight than what you came here. Okay? God bless all of you. Thank you.